There are moments in life that define us, not by the blows we receive, but by how we absorb them. Think back to a time when someone made a remark that cut deeper than they intended. Maybe it was in a meeting, during a casual conversation, or even in the presence of those you care about. Their words were sharp, their tone dismissive, and in that split second, you felt the sting of something more than mere disrespect. You felt the shift in power, the attempt to place you beneath them. It's tempting to respond impulsively, to defend yourself or lash out, but there's a quiet art to navigating disrespect that most never master. Imagine not just responding, but doing so in a way that leaves your aggressor second-guessing their choice. Imagine gaining the respect of others, not by loud words or empty threats, but by an approach so calculated that it flips the dynamics without anyone realizing it. What if, in those moments, you could wield silence like a blade, or use a single line to shift an entire room's perception? Today, we're breaking down 8 principles that are often overlooked, techniques that help you reclaim your dignity and turn a slight into an advantage. You'll learn how to disarm with silence, how to make others feel the weight of their words without a single retort, and why sometimes letting your actions echo louder than words is the ultimate response. These aren't just tactics, they're lessons forged by those who learned how to command respect without raising their voice. Stay with me to the end, and you'll recognize them when the time comes. You'll see how each principle fits together to create an unshakable presence. But only if you can remain locked in, because the greatest strength lies not in the reaction, but in understanding when and how to act. Rule 1. Embrace the pause. When someone disrespects you, the natural impulse is to defend yourself immediately, to throw words like punches in a desperate bid to reclaim your dignity. But in the art of dealing with disrespect, your greatest weapon isn't a quick retort, it's the pause. To illustrate this, let's step into the corridors of history. Picture a political gathering in ancient Rome, a Senate meeting where tensions often ran high. During one such session, Marcus Tullius Cicero, the renowned orator and statesman, found himself facing a biting insult from a rival senator. This wasn't uncommon in Roman politics. Words were weapons, and tempers flared easily. But on this day, Cicero did something unexpected. Instead of responding immediately, he simply paused. His eyes locked on the man who had insulted him, and for several seconds, he said nothing. The room grew tense, and whispers began to spread. Cicero's rival shifted uneasily, realizing that his words had not provoked the outburst he had anticipated. In the silence, his insult seemed to grow smaller, almost petty. Cicero, with his silence, had taken control of the narrative. When he finally spoke, it was with a calm authority that not only dismissed the insult, but subtly turned the tide of opinion in his favor. The lesson. Cicero understood that reacting impulsively would have put him on the same level as his attacker, transforming their exchange into a spectacle. By pausing, he exposed his opponent's words for what they were, a desperate attempt to rattle him. The pause forced the aggressor to reconsider his actions, and in doing so, Cicero demonstrated a deeper mastery over himself and the room. For you, embracing the pause serves 2 purposes. First, it buys you precious time to collect your thoughts and decide on a measured response. Second, it shifts the burden back onto the person who insulted you, forcing them to reflect on the impact of their words. The silence becomes your tool, not a sign of weakness, but a moment of calculated power. However, this principle isn't just about control, it's also about choice. By pausing, you choose when and how to engage, if at all. And in making that choice, you take back the narrative from those who seek to disrupt your peace. Rule 2. Redirect the spotlight. There's an art to dealing with disrespect without ever acknowledging it. When someone tries to undermine you, the instinct is to confront them head-on. But true mastery lies in not giving them what they crave, your attention. One of history's most powerful examples of this comes from the life of Queen Elizabeth I of England. During her reign, Elizabeth faced countless challenges to her authority. The courts were rife with those who sought to diminish her power with veiled insults and sharp criticisms, testing her every move. But Elizabeth had a technique, one that made her not only respected but feared. It happened during a gathering with her advisors, where a particular noble, notorious for his arrogance, made a cutting remark about Elizabeth's lack of a husband, implying her inability to rule effectively without a king. A murmur swept through the room, and all eyes turned to the Queen, anticipating a fierce rebuttal or a cold dismissal. But instead, Elizabeth did something unexpected. She didn't react. She let the silence stretch for a few moments, her face betraying no emotion. And then, almost as if she hadn't heard the remark, she shifted the conversation completely. She redirected the attention of the room to a different matter, a recent victory at sea against the Spanish fleet. She praised the bravery of her navy and spoke of England's growing strength. Her tone was composed, her focus unwavering. The noble who had spoken out was left grasping for words, unsure of how to regain control of the conversation. By redirecting the spotlight, Elizabeth had done something subtle yet profound. She showed that his words held no power over her and that her authority was unchallenged. The lesson. Elizabeth's tactic of redirecting the conversation served two crucial purposes. First, it denied her adversary the satisfaction of a reaction, exposing his comments as petty and irrelevant. Second, by shifting the topic to a triumph, she not only reinforced her position, but also subtly reminded everyone of her authority and accomplishments. For you, redirecting the spotlight is a tool of immense power. When someone tries to demean you, steer the conversation towards something that highlights your strengths or achievements. The insult is rendered powerless, and the instigator is left feeling insecure, their attempt to provoke you failing to leave a mark. But this technique requires discipline. The temptation to confront and address an insult is strong, yet true strength lies in the restraint to guide the conversation in a direction that suits you. You decide where the attention goes, and in doing so, you control not only the room, but also the narrative. Rule 3. Weaponize curiosity. Sometimes, the most powerful response to disrespect isn't a counterattack, but a simple, piercing question. A question that leaves your opponent exposed, disoriented, and scrambling for an answer. Curiosity, when used wisely, can turn the tables without a single raised voice or harsh word. A master of this technique was none other than Socrates, the Athenian philosopher known for his method of questioning. Socrates had a unique way of disarming his adversaries, not by contradicting them outright, but by asking questions that subtly revealed the flaws in their arguments. In one notable instance, Socrates was confronted by a prominent statesman who belittled him in public, calling him an ignorant man who only questioned others because he lacked knowledge himself. Rather than react angrily or defend his reputation, Socrates did something unexpected. He turned to the statesman and asked, "What is wisdom?" It was a simple question, but it held layers of complexity. The statesman, caught off guard, began to answer, fumbling through vague definitions and uncertain terms. With each response, Socrates gently probed deeper, following up with another question that forced the statesman to reflect and reconsider his own words. Before long, the crowd that had initially laughed at Socrates' expense now watched in silence as the statesman struggled to articulate his point. By the end, it was clear that Socrates had turned the initial insult into a lesson, not just for his opponent, but for everyone witnessing the exchange. The lesson. Socrates' approach shows that asking the right question isn't about seeking an answer. It's about exposing the shallow foundations of an insult. The aggressor, expecting a fight, is instead confronted with their own lack of clarity, forced to explain what they never truly understood. For you, weaponizing curiosity means responding to an insult with a question that challenges the very premise of the disrespect. This disarms the other person, shifting the dynamic from confrontation to introspection. It allows you to maintain control, leaving them uncertain and exposed. But there's an art to it. The question must be simple yet piercing, designed not to provoke anger, but to provoke thought. And in doing so, you show that true power isn't in having all the answers, but in knowing how to ask the questions that matter. Rule 4. The Power of Understatement. In a world that often equates strength with loudness, there's an overlooked power in saying less and letting silence carry the weight of your words. Understatement, when used intentionally, can be a formidable tool, leaving others to fill the gaps with their own uncertainty and assumptions. Consider the story of Abraham Lincoln during the early days of his presidency. In 1861, with the nation on the brink of civil war, Lincoln faced harsh criticism from both his political adversaries and even those within his own cabinet. One of the most outspoken critics was Edwin Stanton, a powerful lawyer who openly ridiculed Lincoln, calling him a low-cunning clown and questioning his competence in leadership. Despite these direct attacks, Lincoln did something that few expected. He said nothing in response. He didn't defend himself or lash out. Instead, He quietly observed Stanton's criticism, never outwardly acknowledging the insults. Over time, Lincoln appointed Stanton as Secretary of War, believing him to be the most capable for the role. Stanton was shocked by this choice, and so was the rest of Washington. In meetings and in strategy sessions, Lincoln never once brought up the past insults or sought an apology. He continued to speak with calm authority and clarity, focusing only on the task at hand, leading the country through its most divisive conflict. This quiet display of restraint and confidence left a profound impact. Stanton gradually came to respect Lincoln deeply, referring to him as the greatest man he ever knew by the time of Lincoln's assassination. The lesson. Lincoln's use of understatement wasn't an act of weakness. It was a deliberate strategy to diffuse tension and demonstrate a strength of character that couldn't be rattled by petty words. He knew that responding forcefully to every insult would only fuel more conflict. Instead, he let the absence of a response speak volumes, and in doing so, revealed the smallness of Stanton's original attacks. For you, using the power of understatement means recognizing when to leave things unsaid. Not every slight demands a rebuttal. Sometimes, the most potent response is a quiet one that allows your actions to speak louder than your words. It creates a sense of intrigue and forces others to fill the silence with their own reflections or insecurities. But understatement isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about choosing your battles wisely. Rule 5. Harness the echo. In a world where everyone is eager to assert themselves, there's immense power in reflecting others' words and emotions back to them. When you harness the echo, you allow people to feel understood, respected, and valued, without ever having to reveal your own hand. One of the masters of this art was Benjamin Disraeli, the 19th century British Prime Minister. Disraeli faced intense opposition throughout his career, particularly from his political rival, William Gladstone. Gladstone was known for his fiery speeches and relentless attacks, often trying to overpower Disraeli with passionate arguments. But Disraeli, instead of rising to the bait, often chose a different path. During a particularly heated parliamentary debate, Gladstone launched into a tirade, accusing Disraeli of undermining the nation's values. When it was Disraeli's turn to speak, rather than defend himself or counter Gladstone's accusations directly, he calmly began to echo Gladstone's own words. He repeated key phrases from Gladstone's speech, acknowledging his rival's concerns with phrases like, "You're absolutely right to want what's best for the nation," or "Your desire for progress is shared by us all." By doing so, Disraeli subtly reframed the conversation, mirroring Gladstone's points while steering the discussion in his own direction. He used Gladstone's energy against him, not as an opponent but as a reflection. The result? Gladstone, expecting a battle, was momentarily disarmed. The intensity of his accusations seemed to lose steam in the face of Disraeli's calm, reflective responses. The House, once roused by Gladstone's fervor, was now listening closely to Disraeli's measured words, drawn in by the unexpected tone of agreement. The lesson. Disraeli's tactic of echoing served two purposes. First, it allowed him to build a bridge between his position and Gladstone's without immediately entering into conflict. Second, it subtly redirected the narrative, letting him control the flow of conversation while disarming his rival. For you, harnessing the echo means mastering the art of reflective listening. When confronted with disrespect or aggression, mirroring certain phrases or emotions not only diffuses tension, but also gives you an advantage. The person who insulted you now finds themselves reflected in your words, their anger fading in the face of unexpected understanding. But this technique is more than just repeating words. It's about establishing a deeper connection and making others feel seen. It requires patience and awareness, recognizing when to amplify someone else's voice rather than your own. In doing so, you create a space where influence thrives and conflict withers. Rule 6. Master the art of deference. Strength isn't always about asserting dominance. Sometimes the most powerful move is to bow gracefully, allowing your opponent to overextend themselves while you maintain a position of strength. This art of deference, yielding strategically, can disarm aggression and subtly shift power in your favor. One of the best examples of mastering deference comes from the life of Japan's famed shogun, Tokugawa Ieyasu. In the late 16th century, Japan was embroiled in a period of civil war known as the Sengoku era. Feudal lords, or daimyos, were constantly battling for control, and alliances were as fragile as they were fleeting. During a critical point in his rise to power, Ieyasu faced a formidable adversary, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the most dominant lord at the time. Hideyoshi, a brilliant strategist, was known for eliminating rivals with ruthless efficiency. When the two crossed paths, most expected Ieyasu to resist Hideyoshi's growing influence. But Ieyasu took an unexpected approach. He chose deference. When Hideyoshi demanded his allegiance, Ieyasu complied without resistance. Publicly, he bowed to Hideyoshi's authority, accepting a lesser position within his hierarchy. He attended Hideyoshi's councils and followed his commands, even though it was well known that he possessed the power to challenge Hideyoshi's rule. By showing deference, Ieyasu bought himself time and trust. He allowed Hideyoshi to believe that his dominance was unchallenged, and in doing so, avoided direct confrontation that would have led to unnecessary losses. But beneath the surface, Ieyasu was consolidating power, securing allies, and preparing for the moment when the balance would inevitably shift. After Hideyoshi's death, Ieyasu's strategic deference paid off. He swiftly moved to establish himself as the shogun, solidifying a dynasty that would rule Japan for over 2 centuries. The lesson. Ieyasu's story shows that deference isn't about weakness or surrender. It's about playing the long game. When you allow others to have their moment of dominance, you gain the freedom to prepare quietly and strike at the right moment. Deference, when strategic, disarms aggression and positions you for victory in the future. For you, mastering the art of deference means recognizing when to yield gracefully. It's about letting others feel the satisfaction of dominance while you work beneath the surface. But this isn't an act of submission. It's a strategy of patience, one that requires self-control and foresight. In moments of disrespect or aggression, sometimes the best move is to lower your head, not in defeat, but in preparation. Rule 7. Cultivate calculated absence. Sometimes the most powerful presence is an absence. In relationships and in power dynamics, being constantly accessible can dilute your impact. Strategically withdrawing or being unavailable can make others realize your value and subtly shift control in your favor. One of the most compelling examples of this principle can be seen in the life of Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury in the 12th century. Becket had a close relationship with King Henry II, who appointed him to this prestigious position, assuming Becket would align with the crown's interests. However, once in power, Becket began to assert the church's independence, leading to a fierce clash with the king. During this period of conflict, Becket made a calculated decision. He fled to France and spent years in voluntary exile. It wasn't an act of cowardice, but rather a tactical move. By removing himself from the direct line of attack, Becket created a void in England. His absence was deeply felt, and it magnified his significance. The longer he remained absent, the more his cause was championed by the clergy and the public, who saw his exile as an act of sacrifice. King Henry, initially furious at Becket's defiance, gradually came to realize the weight of his absence. Becket's strategic withdrawal turned him from a mere political adversary into a symbol of the church's resistance. Eventually, Becket's return was not only a personal triumph, but a moment that altered the course of English history. The lesson. Becket's use of calculated absence demonstrates the power of removing oneself from situations that threaten to diminish your influence. It's not about running away. It's about retreating strategically to force others to appreciate your absence and reconsider their actions. For you, cultivating calculated absence means understanding when to step away from situations or relationships that threaten your dignity or value. It's recognizing that being constantly available to those who disrespect you only weakens your position. By creating moments of distance, you give others a chance to miss you and recognize your importance. But this strategy requires self-awareness and discipline. It's about knowing when to be scarce, not as a means of escape, but as a way to reassert your value in the minds of others. Remember, absence isn't just a physical act. It's a psychological tool that can amplify your presence in ways that direct confrontation never could. Rule 8. Project unshakable calm. In a world of constant agitation and rapid reactions, projecting calm can be your greatest weapon. The ability to maintain composure, especially when facing provocation or chaos, creates an aura of quiet authority that draws others to you and leaves your opponents unsettled. One of the most famous practitioners of unshakable calm was Mahatma Gandhi. During the British colonial rule in India, The British government's harsh policies and oppressive actions provoked widespread anger and violent uprisings among the Indian population. Yet, in the midst of this turmoil, Gandhi displayed a profound calmness that disarmed even the most aggressive opposition. One of the most defining moments of this came during the Salt March in 1930. The British had imposed heavy taxes on salt, a basic necessity, and banned Indians from producing it. In response, Gandhi led a 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea to defy the salt laws peacefully. During the march, British authorities and their supporters tried to provoke Gandhi and his followers, hoping to incite violence and justify their repression. But Gandhi's calmness remained unshaken. When confronted with taunts, threats, and even physical abuse, he did not retaliate. Instead, his serene demeanor conveyed a quiet defiance. His followers mirrored his calm, and the world watched as an entire nation responded to injustice with a disciplined and resolute stillness. The British, who were prepared to crush a violent rebellion, were baffled. They couldn't justify their actions in the face of such peaceful resolve. Gandhi's calm presence not only gained him respect from the Indian masses, but also won him sympathy and support from around the world. His unshakable calm under pressure became a powerful tool in India's struggle for independence. The lesson. Gandhi's projection of calmness in the face of aggression shows that maintaining your composure is not just a matter of self-control, it's a form of power. It signals to others that you are unbothered by petty provocations, that you stand on solid ground while others flounder. For you, projecting unshakable calm means mastering your emotions and reactions. It's not just about staying silent. It's about remaining steady when others expect you to break. In moments of disrespect or chaos, those who can hold their ground with quiet authority are the ones who truly command respect. This calmness must be authentic, stemming from true inner strength and confidence. Recognize that those who provoke you aim to disturb your peace. By remaining steadfast, you preserve your dignity and gain the advantage over those trying to unsettle you. If you've made it this far, you've proven yourself different from those who let distractions erode their focus. You've committed to understanding and mastering the subtle, yet powerful, ways to disarm disrespect and command genuine authority. This journey was not about reacting out of emotion or retaliating with aggression, but about employing strategy and insight to elevate your presence and amplify your value. With these tools, embracing the pause, redirecting the spotlight, weaponizing curiosity, cultivating calculated absence, and more, you are equipped not just to overcome moments of disrespect, but to transform these moments into opportunities for influence and respect. Now, you possess the wisdom to not just respond, but to lead, leaving others to admire your strength and composure. But remember, mastery demands practice. Don't let these lessons remain theories. Implement them in your life and watch how others start to respond differently to you. When you hold the power to stay calm, redirect tension, and subtly shift dynamics, you command more than just respect. You elevate your value in every interaction. If you found this journey valuable, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. And most importantly, commit to practicing these principles, because mastery isn't a single act, it's a way of life.